Can we all see that?
Looks good to me.
All right, awesome. All right, hey Danny. Hi everybody. So welcome. Thanks for joining us. My name's Erin Griffith, and I'm the program coordinator here at Fedora. And today I'm joined by Daniel Bernstein, who's our tech lead. So we're happy to be here to talk to you about the newest version of Fedora, Fedora 6, what you can expect to find in this version of the software, as well as what we have planned for the future post-release. So just to give you an idea of how we made it to 6, here's a brief little timeline of our release schedule. So Fedora 6 was actually started in motion just a little over 2 years ago by the coming together of community members who were looking to improve upon some pain points associated with Fedora 4 and 5, and really wanting to put an emphasis back on our digital preservation roots. So we're actually very fortunate that we were able to sustain momentum toward 6 all throughout COVID and all the quarantines and lockdowns and everything that came with it. We released our alpha version back in December of 2020 and put it into the hands of the community to test and give us feedback. From that process, we were able to move to a beta release at the beginning of 2021 in February, which was essentially feature complete at the time. So this really gave our users and the testers the ability to really kick the tires on the software with all of the bells and whistles attached. They were able to run some test migrations, give us feedback, and we got the feedback that we needed to be able to move ahead with our full production release, which we were able to do by the end of June 2021. So currently, we're prepping for the next release of our software and looking to optimize performance with this release. So since June, we've also had the chance to add a few additional items and things, which Danny's going to talk about in a few minutes. But why 6.0 and what makes it better than past versions? So first and foremost, Fedora 6 gives users enhanced digital preservation and support. So it's a robust and well-functioning piece of software with a persistence layer that's based on the Oxford Common File Layout, or OCFL, which provides the standard for all the content that's contained within it. So far, it's functioning well based on all the feedback we've been hearing and getting, which is exactly what we wanted it to do. And as I said, those who are testing currently have indicated that it's performing as expected under most conditions. And if it's not, we're able to dig in and find out exactly what is going on, thanks to the performance tracking that we have access to, which we didn't have in past versions of the software. So this has been a really great tool for us in optimization, allowing us insight that we'd never had before into bottlenecks or areas of decreased performance. So we can really dig in there and find out what's going on pretty quickly. And lastly, with minimal changes to the API from Fedora 5, and thanks to the OCFL standard, we should be able to expect that migrations should be easier and maybe even fewer of them required in the future, which is always a win for everybody. So with that, I'm going to actually pass it over to Danny now, who's going to go over what we think or we consider our top 5 features of Fedora 6.
Great. Thanks, Erin. So let's see, we can just run down the list here and then I'll drill down on each one. So we have the Oxford Common File Layout, as Erin mentioned. We have robust migration tooling. So we have pathways now from all previous versions of Fedora, starting from Fedora 3 through Fedora 5. We have a new metrics dashboard, which I can show you some screenshots of. We have a simple search facility. So this is essentially gives you a way to, via the API, to search for on different fields. And we also can say that there are virtually no API changes between Fedora 5 and Fedora 6. So even though the move from 5 to 6 is actually a massive amount of change in terms of the internals, as far as the API is concerned, the HTTP API, it's very, very minimal, which has been great. So moving sort of down that list, and I can drill down a bit. So for those of you who aren't familiar with OCFL, it's a simple, non-proprietary specified open standards approach to the layout of preservation persistence. So this was essentially grew out of the community. There were a lot of people who were having this issue, wanting a standard file layout for repositories. And it really solved a problem for us with Fedora because we were using ModeShape, which is a project, a JCR Java content repository, which didn't, which had the opposite. It had completely opaque file storage, and some of the data was in the database, some of it was on disk. It was all very ModeShape specific. So OCFL gives us a lot of advantages, and so just to run through them, there's the completeness dimension, which is that all the data, sort of all the state of your application, at least as far as Fedora is concerned, is stored in OCFL. So you can blow away any indexes, you can rebuild without any fear of losing data, losing information. It's parsable, so you can read it with just a regular file browser, file reader. Of course, if you have binary assets, those are going to be whatever you've saved them as. But as far as all the metadata and the layout of the data store, it's completely transparent, human readable, and it's machine readable insofar as that it's quite easy if you needed to, although we have Fedora right now, but maybe in the distant future there'll be no Fedora, but you'll still have your OCFL, which is going to be easy to read. And so you could then create a new application that could read and write to that OCFL. It has strong fixity, so robust against errors. So that fixity is at the binary level, the resource metadata level, and as well as the sort of object inventory level, which is sort of like the, you could think of that as the metadata. So the metadata around the actual storage itself. It has versioning, so forward delta versioning, so it's quite compact. And we are supporting S3 out of the gate. Of course, you can use any kind of file system. So EFS is an option if you want cloud, but you're not using S3. And I imagine we will, as folks want it, we will be rolling out for different, sorry, I just lost my place here. We'll be rolling it out for different cloud providers. As far as the migration tooling goes, I mentioned that we have migration paths from 3, 4, and 5 to 6. And this was funded by the Fedora Migration Paths and Tools grant that we received from IMLS. That has been quite successful, and we are greatly indebted to the community for all the work that went into that to test the migrations and pilot migrations and whatnot. The metrics dashboard is a great feature that we were able to bring in to Fedora 6. We're using Micrometer, which is the Java package for instrumenting the code, and then we have Prometheus is the metrics gathering tool, and then we're using Grafana to visualize that. So for really just the price of instrumenting the code, we got this whole other view into the system, and we're using these standard tools, and they're very, very powerful. We went through multiple rounds after our beta of performance improvements, really thanks to these tools. Simple search gives you a search by MIME type, created and modified dates, resource type, content size, by ID. So it's not intended to be a replacement for Solr or Elastic, but if you have just simple needs, you want to get some visibility, do some object counts based on these fields, it's exposed and available and sort of automatic. As far as integrations go, we have the Camel Toolbox, which you may be familiar with. Actually, probably not in the Samvera community, because this is mostly used by folks who are doing a custom integration with Fedora. But it does do Solr indexing. It can index to a triple store. There's a custom HTTP facility that allows you to easily integrate with any HTTP service. Then, of course, it's built into Islandora, so it's an option if you're an Islandora user to just plug Fedora in. It is now compatible with Valkyrie, so to the extent that Samvera is supporting Valkyrie, if Fedora is now supporting that. And finally, we are moving towards Docker in most of our deployments. So everything that you want to do with Fedora is available through Docker Hub at this point. And that's including the Camel Toolbox, which will be released shortly. So migration testing highlights. Islandora was able to upgrade from 5.x with I think maybe 1 or 2 minor code tweaks, which was gratifying. And then we had the Berlin State Library did a migration from, I believe, like 4.5 or 6 up to Fedora 6, and they were successful. If you're interested in that, I would recommend you take a look at this YouTube video, which that was a presentation of that migration experience. As far as coming weeks, future plans, we have a 6.1.0 coming out, which is mostly performance improvements in terms of read-write on OCFL. There's some features and bug fixes, but for the most part, it's performance related, especially if you're working on a NAS. There is some incremental improvement in the S3 connector. We also have our Camel Toolbox release, which should be happening this month as well. And we have, we're planning sort of over the next, say, months, continuing to support folks in their migrations. We have some ideas around adding some analytics support into Fedora, so taking some of the information that's available in the search index and making that more visible, and summarizing that data about your repository. We also have training workshops and overall community engagement that will be our focus to try to help folks make the move if they want to, or at least learn more about Fedora. So with that, I think I will pass it back to you, Erin.
Awesome. Yeah, thanks, Danny. So, I mean, there's lots to look forward to there. We're pretty excited about where we've come and what we have left to do. So with the last little bit of time here, I just wanted to take some time and let you know a little bit about our community and how we've leveraged our members and our users in the community to really guide the direction of our program. So last spring, we hosted 2 Fedora user group meetings where we invited members of the community to come together. They could share what they've been working on, special projects, things like that, and talk about how Fedora fits into their ecosystems at their institutions. We wanted to kind of see what they were doing with their repositories and really just hear what they had to say about what they were doing. So typically we hold these in person, but obviously due to COVID, they were virtual. So we held 2 separate sessions, one for North American members and one for people outside of North America in order to try to accommodate for time zones. So it was a really fun way for us to connect with a large group of people at once. And like I said, we couldn't meet in person. So, you know, we tried to just keep it engaging and really listen to what our users were saying. And we got some really great success stories come out of them in terms of what they were doing for testing and Fedora 6 and migrations in general. We also just wrapped up a series of community information gathering sessions where we openly invited institutions to take part in kind of a forum style session that discussed their institution's successes and challenges and what they had planned for their future in terms of their repository programs. So the goal here wasn't to speak about Fedora specifically, but really talk about their repository programs in general so that we could kind of listen to the information that they were giving us. We want to then compile it and look for themes or areas that we could tackle as a community as we start to look at our strategic planning for post 6.0 release. So this type of community polling or involvement is actually how we came to Fedora 6 and how Fedora 6 was conceptualized through conversations just like the ones we finished wrapping up. So, I mean, we are a community-led open source program. So ultimately, when we're making the strategic decisions and things like that on where the program's headed, we value and we want the input from our community. And lastly, every week we host our open Fedora Tech meeting. So this is open to anybody to attend and come. This has proven to be an invaluable resource to connect with our dedicated teams of committers on things like development progress and what they're working on. So these meetings are for anybody to join. We have a lot of people come that aren't members necessarily, but they're looking for ways that they can help out or get involved in the development of specific areas of interest to them. So you can, there'll be links at the end, but we hold these every Thursday at 11 Eastern, and we definitely would welcome any new faces into that tech meeting. Danny is our host there, so he always likes a good plug for the tech meeting.
Yeah, tech meeting.
So with that, I just want to thank you. That's all we have in terms of our presentation. I just want to thank you for joining us today. We're really happy to be here and be able to share our recent successes with you. Just another really big shout out to all of our member institutions that we've got shown here. As I mentioned, we're an open source program funded entirely by the contributions of these member institutions. And without their support, we wouldn't be where we are today, and we wouldn't be able to share the success of 6 with you right now. So if you're not already a member, obviously we'd encourage you to consider becoming one so that we can ensure the survival of our digital preservation software, Fedora, and all of the things that are contained within it around the world. So thanks again. Here are our resource slides. The slide deck, I imagine, will be made available, but there's some things here that you can go through. So obviously download Fedora 6.0. There's the links to follow the mission path. You can read more about our testing and performance, or get connected with us by joining Slack, any of our mailing lists. Our Slack channel is actually probably the best way to get a hold of people or get questions answered the fastest. So if you click on the Get Connected link, it'll show you how to get involved on Slack there. So thank you again for having us. We've really appreciated being here. We are happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Daniel and Aaron. I see some interesting conversation in the Connect channel about collaborating on Hyrax and Fedora 6, so be sure to check that out.
Awesome.
And one question about how are Prometheus and Grafana deployed out of the box? Is it easy to point Fedora at my existing deploys?
So the way it works is, in order all you do is you essentially there's a Java option, a flag that you turn on either in the config file or on the command line. So that's as far as what it takes to start collecting data. And then we have instructions on the wiki for how to set up, basically bring up a Docker Compose setup with the Prometheus aggregator, and then Grafana are running in a Docker Compose. And it's really quite straightforward. You Docker Compose up, and then we have a Fedora dashboard that you can insert or kind of upload to your Grafana, and you're good to go. So, and going forward, we'll probably have just a separate containerized Grafana with our Fedora dashboard preloaded on there. But at the moment, it does require that you upload that. So I would say it takes, going through the instructions, about less than 10 minutes to set it up.
Thanks, Danny. If there are any other questions coming through, we have a couple minutes. well, I don't. Here we go. Can you repeat what the search index fields were again, please?
It's Fedora, so the Fedora ID, and it has wildcard searching. You can do the created date, modified date, the content size, the MIME type, and the RDF type.
All right, thank you. I don't see any other questions right now, so I want to thank you so much. I will jump back over just with a few reminders. One, there is a social session after this. I need to find the information for it. I think Heather will post the link in Connect Slack, and that will be a randomized conversation. So Rick Johnson's going to be your friendly host to kind of lead that, moderate that conversation. And that'll be starting right after this. I think it's scheduled for past. And otherwise, that concludes our agenda for today. So thank you so much for tuning in and staying tuned in. We've got 2 more days of great programming. So come back tomorrow and we'll see you then. Thank you, everybody.
Thanks.